From script to screen, every film is brought to life by visionary creatives and executives, all sharing one mission: to captivate the audience. Hosted by award-winning movie strategist Kevin Goetz, our podcast, Don't Kill the Messenger, offers a filmmaking masterclass through intimate conversations with Hollywood's most influential voices. And now, your host, Kevin Goetz.
Let's get something straight. In Hollywood, agents book the flight, managers map the journey. But to truly understand the legacy of my guest today, don't think travel, think architect, because he's done both, and often at the same time. Arnold Rifkin pioneered the concept of a total talent agency, guiding everything from script to screen, including casting, development, and even the final cut. Along the way, he also helped build one of the most recognizable brands in action cinema. From founding Triad Artists and leading the film division at William Morris, to producing blockbuster films as the longtime producing partner and former manager of Bruce Willis, Arnold has shaped Hollywood from every angle. I am thrilled to have you here today, Arnold. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. I'm a little humbled by all that.
Well, it's all true,
It is what
man.
it is. Yeah, I'm sitting here, and that's the truth.
So what do I get when I read that, and having known you and met you through a mutual and dear friend, Tom Sherrick, who we both had a reverence for? Boy, that was something, huh?
He was probably one of the most important men in my life and remains that way. And I get emotional.
You get emotional when you think of that?
Absolutely.
You and I were actually rekindled at one of Tom's Passover Seders.
We didn't do any business at that point, but I knew who you were, and I knew that when we went to the test screenings, you were running it.
What was it about Tom that touched you so deeply?
We met early on, and sometimes there's an electricity. It's not about anything other than, I want to know you, and I know you can help me, and I can help you. And I became his agent very early on. And our deal was, I never charged him, nor would I. There was no commission, but he taught me the distribution business. And my question for him was, I know how to get there to give you the content, but then what happens when I don't have any power anymore and it goes to you? I need to know what happens. And we had a relationship for so many years where Friday night was the vigil, Saturday morning was my first exam, and then Sunday I had to tell him what's going to happen based on Friday night.
Yeah, the multiple.
Yeah, and we did this for 10 years. And I had the privilege and the honor of, when Joe finally wanted to create Revolution, I did Tom Steele. I did a deal with Tom Rothman. I did a deal with Strauss Zelnick back at Fox.
Wow. Let's start with what I see as kind of, I always use this term, the leitmotif of Arnold Rifkin, which to me is believing and selling, but not selling like your father was in the schmata business.
He was.
And you followed in his path and then sold shoes in Los Angeles. What is it about selling that touched you so deeply as a youngster? Was it your dad's influence?
Probably. He was in the mink business, and he was
Mink?
Mink. And he put Sears Roebuck in the mink business with a stole.
Sears sold minks?
Yes, absolutely. So here's what I learned from him, and I used to travel with him. I would have never known this, but it was literally how I did the Die Hard original deal. My father would go to the door and say, listen, here's what I'm willing to pay, and if you don't want that, I'm okay. And he would put his hand on the doorknob ready to leave. And the guy would say, well, okay, wait a minute.
Didn't our fathers both teach us how to do that with cars? You literally go into the parking lot and they come after you.
With anything. So I had a little DNA. You know, my dad was an immigrant. He never went past the sixth
Poland?
grade. No, he was from the Ukraine, from Russia. And he came over when he was 12 or 13. And actually, when I became president of William Morris, we celebrated the 100th anniversary. And we went to Ellis Island as part of it. I found my dad's name. So he kind of lives on.
What was his name?
His name was Herman, but we called him Hy, H-Y. And so I learned from him. And he didn't know it because I didn't ask questions. I just watched. I learned by watching. I learned by listening. I didn't talk much.
Your brother is, of
Ron,
course, a renowned actor, Ron Rifkin.
Yes.
How did he get into the business?
We were raised Orthodox, and my brother went to yeshiva, And he graduated like at 16 or 17. And he went to NYU and he was pre-med. And in his second year, the green room came in his life somehow. And that was it, acting. And,
Of course.
and
Where'd he get the bug, though?
he was always center in our family. He loved to entertain.
It's just the two boys?
No, I have a sister as well. In the middle. I'm the baby. I'm the boomer.
Now, you're also a model.
Yes.
Print or runway?
All of it. And then I did Chef Boyardee. I did a bunch of commercials where I danced and I was on camera the whole time. And I made a lot of money and I put a lot of it towards my college and it felt good.
In Cincinnati?
And yeah. I had a lot of pride in being able to put down something towards my education.
Your parents, though, your dad sold minks, so you would think that you were pretty well off.
Don't look at the book or see what's inside. Yeah. Yeah, we were Forest Hills for years. And when my dad started to do well, we moved to Long Island, to Great Neck. But we didn't go to Kings Point. We went to Lake Success. And I'll tell you, who moved in shortly after was Don Steele.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Chuck Roven's coming on.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? Chuck knows the story. Dawn called me and we got our 25th anniversary for our high school. And she called and she said, I'm not going. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go with you.
Wow.
Now, she was the queen at this point. She had elevated into a very high position at the studios. And yet we were in the limousine heading towards the celebration. And we're sitting in the limousine and she is holding my hand and she's on the phone with Chuck. And she was terrified. When those doors opened and everybody saw who she was, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see her again until we had to go back on the flight.
She was a powerhouse.
She was a force.
So how did you get into the business from selling shoes? Where did you meet Nicole David to start Rifkin David?
On an escalator. My brother's closest friend was Nicole, and they had a relationship for years. That was it. And I had already now left the shoe business, and I decided that I was going to become an agent.
Why?
I love the art of figuring out and selling.
I knew that. See? That's your leitmotif. That's the thing underneath it all. Then you start looking at your whole life, right?
When my career started to escalate, I started to think, how can I make a difference? And you know the promenade, right? Down 3rd Street. And one of my daughters said to me, Dad, there's a young girl singing down at the promenade. And there's 2 babies involved and they're in the carriage and the dad is there. And she's singing. She's great. I go down there. And to cut to the chase, I finally got the father to agree to let me meet his daughter. They took a bus to get to Triad, and we got her a commercial. So that was rewarding. That is the thing inside me that says, you know what? Good job, Rifkin.
So you start an agency with a woman that ended up really well. I mean, a lot of these early relationships don't end well. Young people get in business relationship not knowing it's like a marriage, and some don't end so well.
We had $1,500 between us in 1975.
So it was really just beshert.
Meant to be for sure. She was also Thelma, the voice of Thelma in Scooby-Doo, and she was a member of the Actors Studio, which is how they met, my brother. Yeah.
So Nicole started as an actress?
Yeah.
She's coming on the show. We're going to get her on.
Oh, you're going
to get her on.
Oh,
yeah.
you have to.
We have to.
I'm happy to bring her. Anyway, Nicole was becoming a better agent than an actress. Every time she didn't get a job, she gave them an idea of who might be right. And all of a sudden, they'd be hiring people that she'd recommend. So she became an agent.
You know, Rick Nacita and Paula Wagner were guests on this podcast. And Paula also started, you know, she was on Broadway. She started as an actress. I have a feeling she was pretty damn good. But she loved when she worked with Susan Smith, and before she got to CAA, she was very, very good at it. And I guess Nicole followed the same kind of trajectory.
Clearly, but she didn't know math. That was a problem as an agent. Stay away from the numbers and you just find the talent.
That's why you worked so well together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you then wanted to expand, I guess, to form Triad. You partnered with a company that was specializing in musical acts, correct?
Regency Artists, yeah. I had a reciprocity with Richard Rosenberg. And along the way, we had made a union with Kimball Parsegian, Gene Parsegian and John Kimball. They were a New York-based agency, small, but really had good talent. And then we acquired Jeff Hunter's company. And that's when I felt there was an ability to take what we've done now and mix it. So now you got music and talent. And we had William Hurt, we had Daniel Day-Lewis, we had Gene's clients. Then I went to Richard and said, listen, with all that we're doing, I don't want to be this small and have talent taken. We had very little attrition once we were Triad, but getting to Triad, we started Michael Keaton, we started Steve Gutenberg. There are a lot of people we started, but they would come after them and whatever. So I said,
Who's they?
The big three. And
Who were they at the time?
Well, it was William Morris, it was ICM and CAA. So I said to Richard, the one thing we're missing is the directors and the writers. So we took 2 years, and I went after Adams Ray Rosenberg. Sam was absolutely against it. He said, I'm not going to have people running through my office. But we've managed after 2 years to merge all three of us to create Triad. Thus, the Triad kind of made sense. Regency Artists, our talent agency, and the literary agency.
It's fair to say that you certainly crafted packaging.
We created the ability for Adams Ray Rosenberg to have the elements that were needed to justify packaging. And the music, Richard was doing really well, and it was a cash business. So it aided us in the journey to become what we became. We had about 500 people, and Variety kind of...
You had 500 people. Wow.
Yeah.
Where were the offices?
10100 Santa Monica Boulevard.
Wow.
All here. Yeah. And we had 1,000 probably by the time we were done.
Did Jeff Hunter stay and Gene stay?
Absolutely. Everybody came.
Who was the head of it?
It was Lee Rosenberg, myself, Richard, and Peter Grosslight, who was Richard's partner.
You ran day to day and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the talent for sure.
Now, did you sign Bruce Willis early on?
I have to give credit to the people that found Bruce. Gene Parsegian, back in New York, had seen him in True West. Sis Corman.
Sis cast him?
She told Gene to go to the theater and see him. And then there was a show they were casting called Moonlighting. And Jenny Delaney, who was our first assistant back in 1975, she became an agent. And Jenny started making the deal for Moonlighting. And I got a phone call. I got to meet this guy. And that's how it happened. It was because of them. And Bruce,
were you wooed right away? Was he that charming?
When he came into my office, he had a torn T-shirt, ripped jeans, and he pretended he was worth $1 billion.
Wow.
He never doubted the fact. And he gave me the smirk. I knew the light in his eyes, and we became agent. And it was a journey. They had already turned him down once. I don't know if you know the journey of how they got cast.
No. You mean for Moonlighting?
Yeah. And
he had already auditioned for it?
Yeah, twice. And he didn't have the money to fly here. Great story. He borrowed the money from Sherry Rivera, Geraldo Rivera's ex. He was dating
That's so random.
Sherry, and she gave him the money to go fly out. And that's how he got to L.A.
But how did he get another opportunity to go back?
They brought him back. Glenn wanted him. And everybody else at ABC just was not ready. And they would line up.
Because he was not a typical leading man.
Not at all.
He had that brilliant quality of being self-effacing, right? And he was sexy.
Yes. He had a swag. But he was a bartender with humor, and he had a speech impediment. And that's how he used his humor. And ironically, we had the same impediment, by the way. We had a hesitation. I could finish his sentences, and I'd always answer the phone and go, yeah, because I couldn't get hello out. My parents put me in class where there was 19 different impediments, and I acquired all of them. I would imitate all of them until I had to figure out, I got to drop this.
Who was your first significant signing?
Michael Onkeen and Amy Irving.
Wow. And Amy Irving's father, of course, was a big stage actor.
Jules Irving.
Yes.
Yeah. And Priscilla Pointer became our client as a result. So we had mother and daughter.
And is that before she married Steven Spielberg?
Oh, yeah. Way before.
Wow. Yeah, she's a terrific actress.
Yeah, and stage actress. And then she matriculated into L.A.
And then Yentl.
Barbara Streisand.
Papa, can you hear me?
That's the story. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about William Morris buying Triad. That had to be...
Thank you for not saying merging. Everybody thinks we've merged, but we were bought.
Uh-huh. And that was probably a really, really big decision, maybe the biggest of your life. Did you want to be acquired?
Yes. I couldn't get a job at William Morris. Yes, I wanted to be acquired. I had the little joy inside here, right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, so when you went out and saw Ron Meyer at CAA and didn't get a job there, and then you didn't get a job at William Morris.
6 months later, he's CAA, and I formed my own with Nicole.
And then people are taking you seriously in a whole different way. And it's great. And so what was it like when you
got bought
by such a formidable legacy agency?
Tell you what, the answer to what you're asking me is my first day at William Morris. I had to meet with all of them, and I'm in the screening room, and I'm supposed to give a speech about how wonderful this is. And I'll never forget that because it was really, everybody was so dubious. I had this reputation to be yell and whatever.
You did?
Yeah. He's a tiger. He yells. He's, whatever. And I knew I was walking into that, and everybody had an intrepidation about what was I going to do, kind of thing. There were all the talent agents and all the heads that negotiated. Walt Zifkin was kind of the guy. I just think they were nervous because they were going through trauma.
Because of 500 new folks coming in.
Yeah, but they also lost a lot of clients. So it took 2 years to do the deal. We had 2 rounds.
Right, William Morris, people don't remember that. William Morris was on the downside.
They were bleeding, and we had a hefty talent list at the time, and Bruce was certainly a major star at this point, and they needed us, and frankly, we needed them, with all due respects. The business is what it is, and it's all about, at that time, the packaging was a significant piece of business, and they had a huge TV division, but they were losing the talent that drove everything else.
They were going to CAA.
Perception. Wherever they were going, yeah. But a lot of them went that way. And they were considered tired. And all of a sudden, this rookie comes in with some energy. I was excited. I was ready to get in there.
Totally.
Yeah. And I had a wonderful time. And they ultimately succumbed to both my vision. I want to say I had a little charm, but I also delivered. And you know what? I shared with them probably the most important thing. It's your destiny. You can make the decision. Do not bring me problems. Bring me solutions. When we do solutions, we
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. You bring me a problem, I don't need you. I can make problems on my own.
I'm also a genius in identifying the problems. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't need another person
Absolutely.
to know what already exists. Yeah. It's a great way to look at life.
Absolutely.
Before we take a break, I wanted to ask you about 2 significant deals. One is Look Who's Talking, and one is Die Hard. I'd love to hear about both of those deals if you wouldn't mind, because those actually happened before William Morris in the Triad.
Yeah, no, we had already done Die Hard, so Bruce had a persona by then. So Look Who's Talking, John Travolta and Kirstie Alley. About 11 o'clock at night, I get a phone call from David Madelon. He's heading to the airport to go to Israel, and they've been testing Look Who's Talking. It's not working.
Yeah, I was involved in that testing.
In 89. So he's saying we're going to release it in 100 screens in Florida, and it's not working. I want to make a deal with you. I want Bruce to do the voiceover. And I said, how am I going to do a voiceover deal? What is that, 1 night, 2 nights maybe? Anyway, I rode to the airport with him on the phone the whole way.
Sure.
And we cut one of the best deals ever for Bruce. Everybody made out. Bruce made a lot of money, and they had a successful film.
And it saved the movie.
Yes. And to the 2 leads.
And it was David's idea.
Yeah. But to the 2 leads, we represented John. I don't think he's ever known this story, and it's time maybe he learned. Anyway, that was a great moment in my life with David, and it bonded both of us. I went on with Blake Edwards and TriStar and Sagansky and David, had a great run. So, but that's a story that nobody knows.
So that was before New Regency, or was David at? You said it.
No, David was at TriStar. Yeah.
That's where I first met him. That's right.
Before Arnon.
Wow. Tell me about the Die Hard deal. How did you make that deal?
With arrogance. Hubris. Because the first round, they went to every famous actor. Nobody wanted to do it. Die Hard was a battery at Sears. That's what that was. And we had come off of a movie that I won't tell you the title, and nobody went, and the worldwide gross was $3 million.
Oy.
And nobody saw the movie. And Bruce was panicked because we had had Blind Date. It opened up to $7.5 million back then. Bruce was really worried, and so was I, because Die Hard comes along.
He had to succeed.
So they went to every significant actor, and they all passed. I knew Larry Gordon, and I didn't have any real relationship, but it was all through Tom Sherrick. This was all Fox. So I already had that relationship. And I know that they went through everybody. And to Larry Gordon's credit, Larry had this spark about Bruce. And after they went through everybody, that's when they came to us. I had already called and said, listen.
You know how many stories of Hollywood have that kind of narrative?
When Joe Roth was doing Home Alone, when he acquired that from Warner's, they'll never give you another movie again. Yes, I do know the stories.
Sharon Stone with Basic Instinct.
Yeah. So anyway, I say, listen, let's meet with Bruce. And he was the guy.
He was so considered, I don't want to say a lightweight, but he was a comedic actor.
I mean, Moonlighting was a comedy of some sort with a little bit of sexuality mixed in there, you know?
Exactly.
There was always a thing with him and Sybil.
So why would Larry give him that break?
Because they were fucked. They couldn't cast the movie, and I knew that.
And he was very popular.
Yeah.
So Fox approved him.
I don't know that Barry Diller was excited about this. I don't know if Leonard Goldberg was excited about this. But you know what? They wanted to make the movie, and John McTiernan loved Bruce. He got it. He got the swag. He got the smirk. So the deal was a difficult deal. I'm not going to share some of the individuals that were involved because it was a little bit acrimonious. They beat him up because I had a number. And I said up front, there's only two things that could possibly happen here. We either succeed or we fail. So you have to pay him enough money to justify either. Either you become a hero or no one could deny the fact that how could you turn that down? And the number was what it became.
What was it?
5.
Wow.
And now at this point, Michael Douglas, Mel Gibson, they were getting 2.5 for sequels.
You raised it.
But Bruce had the balls to let me do the Moonlighting.
You would have walked.
Oh, I did walk. God bless Leon, who was running Fox Business Affairs and who did the deal. Leon, rest in peace. He was great, but he knew that I had a number and I wasn't going to move from the number. And the doorknob was the key. I had no issue with it because you know what? It wasn't his money until the deal was set. So he didn't lose anything.
Was it first dollar gross deal?
He wasn't a first gross player, but this was all about justifying why we did it. And if it worked, nobody cared about the price. If it didn't work, he was the highest paid actor for 15 minutes in the world. And that was the justification that I felt would at least mitigate depending upon what the outcome was.
It's also really good press if you think about it.
Press, I was banned from Warner Brothers. Everybody's salaries went sky high. Mel Gibson wanted $5 million. Michael Douglas said, how could you pay me 2.5 and he's a nobody and you pay him 5? I got hammered. Every studio said, Rifkin, what did you do? A $5 million deal to somebody who just did one movie that failed and did $3.2 million.
I wanted to just talk about something you had mentioned, a story about Edgar Bronfman and Bruce with wine coolers. Can you just tell that story really fast?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, right?
Certainly a departure from television and movies. Edgar had started, the Bronfman family is infamous for the liquor and the world of Seagrams, right. And so I get this phone call and Edgar reaches out. He's got the wine cooler that is launching and there's a significant amount of competition. And being number 5 and being the Bronfman family just didn't settle. And I say that not in a pejorative way, but it's true. They're Seagrams. So Edgar makes a proposal and he's telling me what he wants. He wants the swag that Bruce has. Back in the day, there was the Marlboro guy, and now Bruce was the guy. Kind of like everybody kind of felt that charm, that you know, it was there. Die Hard, Come to the Coast. He made up lines that just nobody else could sell. And so I gave Edgar a price, and he said, that's way too much money. And I said, I don't know how to fix it. If you're not willing to pay, you want to be one? And he said, okay, we're done. A year later, Edgar calls.
So you passed.
I did.
You were willing to walk.
We walked. Absolutely. There was no way to put him on screen doing that unless we could again justify. And Edgar comes back a year later and said, I've seen 3,000 men and I can't find the guy that I want.
Wow.
So I'm back. He said, so I'm willing to pay you. I said, Edgar, it's a year later.
Oh, no, you did not.
Inflation and all, whatever.
You did,
Seriously? Absolutely. And,
I wish you represented me, man.
And he paid, paid, the numbers are irrelevant. He paid a lot of money to get Bruce. And you know what? Within 6 months, he was number one.
Great story.
So the means justified the ends.
When we come back, we are going to talk about Bruce Willis and the partnership that was so formidable. We'll be back in a moment. Listeners, the Motion Picture and Television Fund is a nonprofit charitable organization that supports working and retired members of the entertainment community. This wonderfully run organization offers assistance for living and aging with dignity and purpose in the areas of health and social services, including temporary financial assistance, case management, and residential living, and has been a crucial lifeline to thousands during and beyond critical times that our industry continues to experience. To learn more, visit mptf.com. Please join me in helping others in our industry during times of need. There are so many ways to offer support and get involved. Thank you. We're back with Arnold Rifkin. Arnold, what made you leave your very successful job at the agency to form a partnership with Bruce Willis?
When you know you're no longer having what it is you were seeking, and it was 10 years. I mean, I've been an agent now then for 35 years, starting with Nicole at $1,500, and I was done.
You weren't enjoying going into work anymore?
No, it was just, I didn't know what else I could do. I had done some significant deals. I have represented some really wonderful people that I was part of, and Whoopi, she embarrassed me all the time, made fun of me because I just had a proprietary. And I remember we went to the Academy Awards and I was with her and she was the host. She changed in front of me. Whoopi, don't do this. I mean, she just made me blush. So I had fun with a lot of them, and Danny Glover, and I learned from my clients because I was in their lives, and that was important. But I no longer was doing that. I had been elevated in a world where people were little,
makes sense.
And I said, maybe it's time to do something different. I had a great run. We did weekends, and I had fantastic moments with these people when we brought people from England, from New York, and from LA, and they finally meet each other, these agents. And I loved doing them. And we didn't bring guests. This was all about us. And I loved bonding people. So we had a map, we had a chain, and everybody got a piece of that chain and knew that if you broke the chain, you're going to break what we have.
Yeah.
And so it was just a moment in time.
Did you call Bruce, or did Bruce call you to say, I have an idea?
I told Bruce that I was leaving. And Bruce said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm not totally sure, but I want to see what the other side's like. I want to know the people who make the decisions on that side. I want to see what that's like. And he said, let's do it together. I said, cool.
Wow, was that
fast?
Was it?
Yeah. And the only thing that I needed, I wanted only one lawyer. I didn't want two lawyers involved.
You mean handling both sides?
Yeah. I wanted one lawyer for both
lawyer?
of us. Skip Rittenham.
Oh, the best. The GOAT.
Well, when you want to go, you go, right?
Well, the GOAT.
Yeah.
You named your company Cheyenne.
Yes.
Based on what?
In that period of time, so now we're talking 2000 when I left, I had the privilege of working with a spiritual guide in the Native American world. And I started to sweat lodge, and I'd sweat twice a month. And I had a really true personal experience with that. And I did that
like
for
with
about
shaman.
15 years. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough, I bought a home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I did a lot of reading on all the different tribal. The reason I picked Cheyenne was their symbol was a dragonfly. And a dragonfly has double wings, and it's not a violent animal, but when it's in danger, once you start with the wings, they disappear because they create smoke and whatever. I wanted to disappear. I didn't want to have all that people looking at me. I wanted to do something that I was enjoying.
Were you always a spiritual person by nature, or searching for something deeper now in this next chapter of life?
Being raised Orthodox, and I sustained that right through college, I did have that Yiddishkeit in me, and it was ingrained in me. That's how that happened.
I'm interested to explore that for a second before we move on.
Sure.
Which is your transformation from a very blustery, strong personality known for his temper, as you self-described, and now you are trying to find deeper meaning.
Yeah.
What led you there?
This experience with the spiritual guide. I had a trainer who would come and see me twice a week. And each time I saw him, I've never seen eyes so white and clear. And I said to Kevin, I said, what is it that you do that when you come, 6 o'clock in the morning, you look, and he told me about this gentleman. He told me about the sweats. And I said, I need for you to introduce me to him. And he became somebody really relevant in my life.
Did you do ayahuasca?
Oh, no. I met him and I shared with him what was happening in my life. And I said, I need some guidance. Are you open to that? And this was not a monetary situation. This was a spiritual one. And I connected with Richard. And for 15 years, he took me on a journey. And Cheyenne, the whole dragonfly thing just came to me when I started reading about the different tribes. And it fit. And I had a shaman come out to the house. And we cleansed the land. We cleansed the house. And I found out that there was water underneath my property. And I decided to create some lakes. We did that. And I had him oversee everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
What
it was
a
great experience.
Sounds a little bit reminiscent of Hawk Koch's journey of kind of refinding himself and getting bar mitzvahed at that later age and going through a real spiritual transformation.
Yeah, I'm smiling because Hawk, we did Hostage together. And we shot most of it across the street from his house where he lived in Topanga Canyon. And Hawk said to me, you need to stop calling me Howard. And I said, Hawk, listen, man, I tell you what, I'll call you Hawk if you call me Prince or whatever the word. I just gave him shit for it. I said, I can't call you Hawk, man. I can't.
Now we don't know him as anything else.
Right.
So what was your first project you did with Mr. Willis?
I think it was The Kid. It was a Disney movie. The second one was Bandits. We had to deal with Joe Roth, first look. We had to deal at MGM, second look. And we were funded, by ourselves as well, but we didn't fund the films. So that's how it started. And he said, look, let's do it together. And I said, great. And we had an office on 4th in Wilshire, beautiful office. And that's how that happened.
Were you with Bruce when he married Demi?
I was in Paducah, Kentucky with In Country, where she gave birth, and they didn't have any mobiles over the crib. And I was out shopping for mobiles in Paducah, Kentucky, probably population 800 people.
Sounds almost like your brothers.
We could finish each other's sentences, and we wore the same size sweaters. So, metaphor.
Of course.
Yeah. We lived together. There's no doubt. And then there was Stephen Eads, who was Bruce's boss at the bar. And after a year of being here, Bruce called him and said, Eads, I need you. And Stephen came out, and to this day, he's still in Bruce's life, 38 years.
So we know Bruce has obviously gone through some major health challenges. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's been very, very probably painful for you as a friend to watch him deteriorate. You still see him.
Yes.
I just want to talk about that for 2 seconds. Yes. You're such a devoted friend and still a partner in a large sense. It's taken on a different profound kind of...
There was a time where we were not, and it wasn't an acrimonious time. It was everybody needed to move on for a while. I got the phone call from Stephen Eads, and I knew a little bit about what was happening, but I was not involved. And Stephen called and said that he'd like to see you. And are you open to that? And I said, absolutely. And that was 2018 maybe. So ultimately, there was a small group of us, and Fridays we would have lunch. And we had great moments, and there's moments when he smiles and you almost know that he remembers that moment that we're laughing at or whatever, or we'd beat him up about his behavior. And there's a little twinkle that's Listen, it's going to be what it is. And if there's anything that one can do to bring a little bit of that life back, that spark, that's our job. That's part of our responsibility. What has evolved over all of this is Stephen and myself. I have a new company, a new studio called Insight. And I have two wonderful partners.
Who are they?
Jenner First and Justin Lee. And Jenner is a documentarian. His films are on every streamer. The Murdoch Murder, Fry Fraud. He's a filmmaker. And Justin was my partner. Justin created KCON.
With Mickey Lee.
Yes, he was working for CJ at the time when they had him create a cultural event representing food, fashion. And Justin started it in 2012. And by 2019, there were 150,000 people coming. And they were in 9 cities. Justin and I became friends in 2016.
So how did you form a company? What made you... This is such a different departure, isn't it?
I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And Jenner and I met on I was brought in as a producer. He was brought in as a director to Stan Lee's daughter. She had written a graphic novel.
Ah.
And Mark Wahlberg's company was bringing me in and Jenner. And it became very clear within an hour or so, neither of us were going to participate in this adventure. But we decided to have lunch. And he had just moved to L.A. from New York. He'd been doing it for 20 years. He's 40 years old and way younger than I am, and I love that. And after about 6 months, we decided to form a company, and I said, you've got to meet Justin, who was a partner with me. And that went well, and here's Insight. So I introduced Jenner to Stephen, and Stephen had a vision to honor Bruce. And for 2 years, he was on it with Emma, Bruce's wife. And now that I was in the picture again, and now that I created this studio, Stephen and I both went to Emma at some point and said, we're probably the only 2 people that know everything. Between my vault and Stephen's vault of memories, we're the only people that could tell that story and tell it with love, tell it with authenticity.
Dignity.
And give him the dignity of who he was. Listen, not to digress, but when 9/11 occurred, we had just done Actors Studio, whatever that was, with James.
Inside Actors Studio.
Yeah.
James Lipton.
Yes. And Glenn Caron flew out.
What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah, it was a trip, James. In any event, we were on our way to leave the hotel, and the television's on, and we see what happens. I'm only sharing this for one reason. The tragedy and everything else I can't address, but we were trapped, and we went for a walk in Central Park. And to understand the gravity of Bruce's persona, we're walking, and Bruce has got his hat on, his glasses. Nobody knows who he is. I mean, we are definitely just nobody's walking in the park. And we listen to somebody say, where is John McClane when you need him?
Oh, man.
Man, that was like, what?
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's cultural impact.
Unbelievable. So he needs to have his story told. And
so you're telling it.
Yeah.
What, do you have a name?
Right now, it's just Bruce.
That's great, man.
For us, there's one Bruce. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Bruce has had a profound impact on the industry, as you mentioned, and so many of the people in it. Is there anything you'd like people to understand about him as a collaborator and as a person?
You didn't tell me you were going to ask that question. Wow. Bruce was, when fame hit, I don't know that he knew how to behave yet. And there were moments where it was inappropriate, and there were moments that were amazing. But I feel as though he was a great father, and he loved to laugh. He loved to make people laugh. And he had a good time. I was not that person. I didn't grow up with that. I don't know how to describe it. Bruce is an anomaly. He really was. There were moments when he had a beach house, and we're 2 a.m. and enjoying a little high and sharing. And he was complicated. He had brothers, and hard to be brothers and have a brother that's as famous as he is.
You bet.
He was the patriarch, for sure. And he took care of his mom and his dad. I mean, that was important to him.
It's Menchie.
Yeah. And then there were moments when it's hard to be that star. One Halloween, first time when Rumor was 4 or 5, I said, let's do Halloween. Let's do something normal. Let's go trick-or-treating. And we did it in the Palisades. And my first kid was Blythe. And within about 15 minutes, this 9-year-old figured out that's John McClane. And he had to just dash and go and grab Rumor and be gone. I mean, he can't do that. He didn't figure that was going to be the way it was. He thought he could still go to the movies.
Sure.
You can't, dude. Not going to happen.
Not unplanned.
Yeah. So it's hard to be a star.
Oh, yeah.
I really mean that. I've been around a lot of stars.
You bet.
It's hard. Some of them handle it well, and some of them have 9 bodyguards. I don't get it. But
well, let's just say it's just so not normal. And it changes your life forever because you've given yourself to the public in a way. And
absolutely.
I love how people talk about themselves in the third person.
Yes.
I just heard that recently about Liza Minnelli. When she was younger, somebody said she went to a party. And did you enjoy yourself last night, Liza? Well, not really. They wanted her.
Yeah, I get that. But, reward too. I mean, there were things about it that were amazing as well. He was generous, and perhaps sometimes to a fault. And sometimes he had moments where he was quiet, and maybe not everybody saw that. That was, I don't know how to describe him. I love him. I hate him. I love him.
It's brothers, man.
Absolutely. And what we see today is punishing to think that this was the ultimate action star. He defined, people admired, and to think that.
And you helped create that brand, if you will.
And how do you help now?
You go every week and you see your brother and you see your friend.
And you create this between Stephen and my partners, Jenner. And we're going to honor, we have so much
brilliant.
footage.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
How do you want your legacy to go down? How do you want to be remembered?
I want to make an impact. I want my children.
How old are your kids?
43, 40, 27, 19, and 17.
The 2 youngest are 19 and
You've
17.
met them when they were
babies. Oh,
yeah,
my God.
At Pesach.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, she's at University of Oregon.
I just want to say for listeners who obviously can't see this, Arnold looks amazing.
Thank you.
Youthful. And I'm going to go on a limb and say it's because of those kids.
Partially, I got to give credit to my wife, Nikki. She makes me young. She's younger than I am, but I'm standing tall with her, man. And my children, Kai is almost 6'4".
My God.
Yeah, and Isabella's 5'10" or whatever. And I don't know where any of that came from. Anyway, that was a digression, but my legacy is I'm still living it. I've never been an empty nester. I've never had a minute where I wasn't
you're kind of looking
married
forward to that.
Absolutely.
I want to just end with a question. If the 30-year-old Arnold Rifkin could give advice to the now senior Arnold, what would he say? You
know what? I learned something by having people who relied on you or looked to you. I taught for 15 years at UCLA and had the most incredible experience, and that was Tom Sherrick, who introduced me to Howard Suber, and I had a great run. You have a choice. You can live in abundancy or you can live in scarcity. That's my world. And it's not about the car you drive. It's really about what you feel.
Truly isn't.
That's what I would share to anybody at a 30-year-old. Listen, I got to say my name 3 times and spell it when I make phone calls now. I'm okay with that. So I'm on the other side.
I don't know about that.
I'm telling you, when I go up to the reception, I'm sorry, is it with an R or is it with an F? It's okay.
Well, Arnold Rifkin, thank you so much for sharing your story today. Thank you for being the incredible human you are and for opening up like you did. And it's a beautiful thing. And I have no doubt that your next iteration in this new company is going to be as successful as what preceded it. Thanks again.
I appreciate it. Wonderful to be here. Nice to see you. Hello to Neil.
And to Nikki. To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed our interview today. For more filmmaking and audience testing stories, I invite you to check out my book, Audienceology, at Amazon, or through my website at kevingetz360.com. You can also follow me on my social media. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll welcome the powerhouse television and film producer, Jerry Bruckheimer. Until then, I'm Kevin Goetz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.